I recognize a lot of you that I was with you last March 16th, and that was the same day the governor said, everybody stay home, there's a pandemic. And you guys all showed up anyway that night for this meeting. And then, as you know, life happened. We're talking about autism today because it's increasing, and you know it's 1 in 54, that we have 132,359 students with autism, mostly all on distance learning. But just as a reminder, way back in 2006, a group of parents just like you went to the state capitol and said, you know, you're not doing enough for children and family with autism in California. And out of that came these recommendations from the Legislative Blue Ribbon Commission, of which I have the honor of being appointed. And our recommendations were to develop a better interagency coordination, which became CAPTAIN, the California Autism Professional Training and Information Network. That we needed more training in autism, and that's what CAPTAIN does, to identify these evidence-based practices. And I do want to tell you that when I met with you last March 16th, it was on April 27th, 2020, pretty much 1 month later, brand new evidence-based practices came out and a new critical review of the literature, which I want to kind of update you on. So brand new stuff. And then to develop a clearinghouse was another recommendation, and that's the CAPTAIN website. So everything I'm going to tell you tonight and show you tonight is on the CAPTAIN website and is on and in this PowerPoint, which I've provided to you. And so CAPTAIN is your multi-agency network. It's part of the statewide system of support. We have partners with all of the family support groups and all 21 regional centers in California. I wanted to show you this video, which is designed just for parents to understand what.
All parents want their children to reach their maximum potential. Children with autism account for 16% of the students with disabilities in the state of California. One way to help all children with disabilities succeed is to ensure that the interventions and services they receive have evidence proving their effectiveness. This video is an introduction to information and resources that will increase your ability to help families to recognize and advocate for the use of evidence-based practices, or EBPs, with their child. The California Autism Professional Training and Information Network, CAPTAIN, is a network of community, state, and federal agencies developed to support the understanding and use of evidence-based practices, or EBPs, for individuals affected by autism spectrum disorder and other developmental disabilities. CAPTAIN's website is an electronic resource for parents to access information on a wealth of topics, including interventions and supports, research, online training, fact sheets, infographics, and news about upcoming local events, and much more. Why is family participation important? Parent participation is enshrined in the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. This is because research shows good student outcomes are linked with active involvement of parents and/or caregivers. This way of working together acknowledges that interventions and supports for children with disabilities are most successful when the family's concerns, priorities, cultures, and beliefs are considered. Barriers to family participation, such as time, money, emotional stressors, lack of information, and confidence, are frequently systemic and have significant consequences. How does understanding evidence-based practices benefit children and families? Families are the experts on their own children, and their participation in intervention planning is crucial. Knowledge is power, and informed parents are in the best position to advocate for the most effective treatment and supports for their child. However, identifying effective interventions can be challenging. Interventions may be recommended when there is no scientifically sound research that supports their use. Being a trusted resource for information is the goal of CAPTAIN. Family support professionals can help families by conducting informational sessions to encourage use of the CAPTAIN website, conducting trainings on EBPs to increase parent knowledge of specific interventions, and encouraging families to identify and share their preferences and values in the decision-making process. Visit the CAPTAIN website to access information about interventions, treatments, or other services for which there is scientifically based research that demonstrates effectiveness. Find out which practices rely on rigorous, systematic, and objective procedures which deliver reliable intervention and activities. Some materials are available in additional languages.
So there you go. That's in a nutshell. That was developed by our family support members. You can tell that we honor and respect families and caregivers of individuals with autism as part of our work with Captain. The newest numbers is that we have 434 Captain Cadre throughout all of California. Most of them come from the schools. We have received Captain Cadre from 30 family support agencies throughout California, which is up from 17. So we made a concerted effort that those family support agencies are part of Captain and really get to learn about the evidence-based practices and share those with families. If you want to learn who your Captain Cadre are, you would go to the Captain website. I did a screenshot of all of those who are in your Captain region. It's called Captain 007. These in Santa Clara County, SELPA 1, these are your 2 Captain Cadre that were nominated by the SELPA directors and their contact information. Your family support agency, probably familiar with Parents Helping Parents, Susanna Navarro, this is her contact information, and they have attended all of our training and kind of boot camp and all the orientation meetings so that they really understand what these evidence-based practices are. Your regional center is the San Andreas Regional Center, and these are your 2 people who know all about Captain and the evidence-based practices that I'm going to talk about again. When we look at a theory of action, basically what we're saying is we know we need to use evidence-based practices. We need to have effective training and coaching, and we need to have a context where everybody wants to provide and has set up a system to implement evidence-based practices. And this is like a math problem. If any one of these is 0, we're not going to get those better outcomes for students. And so we are really focused on making sure everybody knows what the evidence-based practices are, that everybody gets good training and coaching, and that the leadership as well as the regional teams all understand evidence-based practices, and that we have a context so that everybody is supported in providing the training and coaching for that. We are funded through your statewide system of support, and so part of that funding is that we become part of this big entity of making sure we improve outcomes for individuals with disabilities, and for us, especially with autism. And so our grant money is used to maximize the academic and vocational outcomes for students with autism, and to make sure that there is a culture of implementation and that they can really participate, our individuals, our students with autism, in the least restrictive environment successfully. So we have funded various SELPAs throughout California to have a regional implementation lead in each of the Captain regions. Your region is called Captain 007, and I've invited Patty Bangs here. Patty, do you want to say a few words and introduce yourself? She is your regional implementation lead, and she is a program specialist from Monterey County SELPA, but she is the leadership team and oversees the whole region of Captain 007.
Hi, thank you, Anne, for inviting me, and thank you to this CAC team for allowing me the opportunity to come in and introduce myself and get to know you a little better. As Anne indicated, I am the regional lead for Captain 007. I am from Monterey County SELPA. I have been involved with Captain since it started having summits, so 8 years now. And I have really seen some changes in our region as 007. It's a pretty big region geographically, and there's a lot of different school districts within our SELPAs. And so the collaboration has really started to come together, I feel, for all of the providers in the different SELPAs within the last couple of years. So we're really excited to be supporting not just our school districts, but the families that we're working with, and working a little bit more collaboratively now with the regional centers and the parent support networks, family resource centers as well. So I want to say that for us, I feel like throughout our whole region, that any of the parent workshops, especially right now as we're virtual, would be open to any of you. And I'm going to try to make an effort to get in contact with your CAC and the CACs in the other regions so that they're familiar with what family workshops are available throughout the entire 007 region. So thank you again, Anne, for including me.
Well, thank you for coming out this evening. I know you had a really long day. When you look at the state of California, we divided it into 17 regions. And when you look at the list, that includes Monterey County, North Santa Cruz County, Pajaro Valley School District, and then you look at San Benito County, and then the giant Santa Clara County. So it's a big area, but all of these people represent it. And then this is the whole area that Patty oversees to coordinate all of the efforts. And so when there are trainings, webinars, and opportunities, everyone can participate. So these are your people. So sometimes it's important just for you to know who to go to after a talk like this. Thank you, Patty.
Yeah, and Anne, can I just point out that the regional implementation leads have only been in place for 2 years, starting last year, and then new ones came on board this year as well. So it's still growing. And so we're just kind of getting those regional leads up and moving.
Perfect. So why are we so focused on these evidence-based practices, people ask? Well, when I Googled autism treatment, I got 182 million hits on November 11th. There are not 182 million evidence-based, research-based practices, but I want you to know there's more treatments and more diversity on what you're going to find than for any other known disability. And the treatment claims, are all the way from amelioration to recovery. And I always, before I do a talk, we don't know what causes autism and we don't yet have a cure. But we do know that these evidence-based practices, the research on them tells us that we can improve outcomes for individuals if they're implemented with fidelity. And so when I spoke with you guys on March 16th, this particular report had not come out. There's rigorous criteria to be a part of this. And so it takes multiple studies by multiple researchers who are objective and unbiased to replicate all of the research several times before it becomes an evidence-based practice. So here are those 28 evidence-based practices. Some of them look very familiar from the last list I gave you, but some of them are new. There's a new category called manualized interventions meeting criteria for evidence-based practices. And some of you may be familiar with PECS, which is the Picture Exchange Communication System, Pivotal Response Training, Social Stories, and PEERS. And just so you know, PEERS is the only social skills program for individuals with autism for which there is research to show its efficacy. There's a lot of social skills programs out there, but this is the one for which there's research, and that came out of UCLA. And so that's one of our go-tos. We just trained 83 Captain Cadre to be certified trainers in this, and I know Patty is one. And so it's important that we're using research-based, evidence-based practices because we know the research tells us they're going to work. There's some other new research that came out, the handwriting without tears. We all kind of knew it was working and we used it a lot over all the years, but guess what? Now the research says, oh, you guys were right. And also the touch point instruction, that's touch math. So some of the academic curriculum that we were using, and we knew because we were keeping data and seeing success with many students with autism, now have research. And so this is a list of those. These still do not have sufficient evidence to meet the criteria for an evidence-based practice. So, auditory integration training, the sensory diet, looking at kind of collaborative model for promoting competence and success. So these still do not yet have evidence for us. So we would not recommend using these yet. There's fact sheets for all those 28 evidence-based practices in that report. On the Captain website, you'll see this matrix. It's right there in English and Spanish for you to look at and refer to. And as I mentioned last time, there are these AFIRM modules that are free and that you can go on and log in for no cost to learn all about these evidence-based practices. At this point, there are new evidence-based practices that don't yet have a module, but most of them are here for you to learn about. And there are lots of parent resources and parent guides, and there are EBP videos. And we always say a picture is worth 1,000 words, because it's helpful to see those videos about what does that evidence-based practice look like. One of the most important features of the AFIRM module are these evidence-based fidelity checklists, meaning you have to implement these evidence-based practices the way the research said they would be effective. And so oftentimes when we come in and they say, well, I'm using this evidence-based practice, we will get the implementation checklist out and say, let's walk through this. You weren't doing step 4 or 1.3. And so these are important for you as parents to know when you're a member of that IEP team and you're talking about progress toward goals and using evidence-based practices. There's an online course on Introduction to Autism on that AFIRM module. And this just came out about reinforcement, and it's a companion guide for families. Now that you all are being teachers for your children at home, it's important now more than ever for you to become more aware about how to implement these particular evidence-based practices. I was doing a talk a while ago, and one of the parents raised her hand and she goes, I don't want to be a teacher. And I go, I know it's tough right now, but we're trying to give you the tools and resources so that it can be maybe a little bit more successful. For those of you who have a one-to-one or a paraeducator, we've been waiting for these particular AFIRM modules just for paraeducators. And so if you feel like your paraeducator or one-to-one could use some more information or instruction on an evidence-based practice, these 3 are specifically designed just for paraeducators. And again, they're free. So why do we use EBPs? I said this last time, and I like to do this last, but basically the federal and state mandates and our ed codes all say we have to use evidence-based practices. But the most important reason is because they work. Now, since I talked to you last time, we got busy and pivoted, as they say. We became adaptable and flexible, and we wanted to help all of you families and even the educators who are trying to make distance learning work. So we created lots of tools and resources. I think I sent these to Rika, who passed them on to you all at the very beginning, but we developed these PADLETs, which has just the right amount of information to help you out. If you look right here where it says guidance document, what we did is we wrote down what to do and where to start, because I think families were getting inundated with too much good intention and too much information. And I was even getting emails with 20 different things on there. And I go, I don't even have time to click on all of these links, these great things. So what we did is we curated these PADLETs and put on there just what you need. And so right here, we have those social stories about what is autism to help your child figure out and kind of understand maybe what's going on. Resources for parents to support home learning. So I'm going to go over what's in these sections. These are resources just for educators to support distance learning. And then for this section, the apps and the timers and all of those kind of some curriculums on there, very inexpensive and just what you need, because now is not the time. More is not best. It's less is more. Let's be really focused and use just what works. We also made the Padlet in Spanish. And so if you have Spanish speaking individuals in your particular CAC or in your districts or counties, this can be extraordinarily helpful as well. This is new. We've developed basically what are evidence-based practices for autism, and it's for families. Hello? Yes?
I thought so.
Oh, my watch is talking to me, you guys. This is another presentation that we did that is recorded, and it's helping educators use a distance coaching model. And so the recordings and the resources, so you can, it's an hour and a half, and you can go kind of learn from these about what are the best practices for providing distance coaching. Here's another one that's an hour and a half that we presented in statewide earlier this year. We have the video session link, the PowerPoint link, and all the materials available to you. And this is directly available from that Padlet. So if you just go to the Padlet on the Captain website and click, everything I'm showing you from here on out is on there and available to you. One of the tools that we think is particularly effective for home instruction right now is the activity matrix. It's actually based on an evidence-based practice called Naturalistic Intervention. It's a nice way to organize your team. Oftentimes, IEP teams for students with autism have a lot of members. They have the educator, the behavior specialist, they have the speech and language specialist, the APE person, I mean, the occupational, there's a lot of people usually involved on the IEP team of an individual with autism. I talked to one parent who had 8 people and I think maybe the director of special ed said to them, call the parents today. So all 8 of these IEP team members called the parent one day. They said, I was on a Zoom call for like 4 hours today with everybody. And I said, well, we're trying to figure out a way to coordinate these efforts so that perhaps just the case manager can contact you, because it's a lot. But I wanted to just show you the matrix because we think it's a really great tool to organize that multi-member IEP team. And since naturalistic intervention is an evidence-based practice, and that's what you're doing now at home, is you're actually working with your child in a natural environment on IEP goals. You would work with your IEP team, but for example, you might review the daily schedule from 9 to 9:30. And some people say 9 to 9:30, a whole half an hour just to look at the schedule. Well, schedules are super important, as you know. But when you look at the academic area, perhaps the reading was the goal for this particular student, to read the words on the schedule. And for math, to read the times on the schedule. So the math, academic, and reading goals were all right here just in reviewing the schedule. So do you see how we're infusing kind of natural application of these academic goals in a natural activity where they're really applied? As you know, most individuals with autism tend to learn rotely, and then we have to really build in on purpose the generalization and application of that learned information. So this is really a nice way to really kind of teach it within the context in which it is needing to be applied. When you look at communication, the SLP said, well, we want them to respond to the prompt, the verbal prompt. Tell me what you want to do today. And so that means the individual with autism has to process that language, think about it, and then use some critical thinking, and then tell verbally what it is they want to do. So now we're working on social communication, language processing, turn taking, just while we're looking at the schedule. When we look at the social skills, the student might request help using 2 words, like help please. Oh, so they really want to work on student agency, really asking for help instead of having a meltdown or withdrawing or trying to escape, avoid, or protest the task. And so now we're going to work on social communication, taking the place of maybe some more maladaptive behaviors when they don't want to do it. Working on independence, we're going to ask the student, why don't you make the order of the schedule today? So important for our individuals with autism to have the ability to have some ownership, to plan. It also increases motivation for what they want to do. It's okay, you know, whatever they want to do, as long as they do it in whatever order that works with you. And then finally, in the fine motor area, the occupational therapist really wants to work on that pincer grasp. But instead of having clothespins, I guess, on a little box kind of done decontextually, we're going to have the individual with autism work on their pincer grasp in a natural activity. So in this case, using the pincer grasps to actually rip the Velcro off for the icon. And so you can see here, we can go through the whole day, but it's a way to naturally infuse your IEP goals within the context of the day using an evidence-based practice called naturalistic intervention. The Captain Resources has both the activity matrix in Spanish and in English for your IEP team to use. And there's also an article that we published in the California Department of Ed newsletter about the importance of schedules and routines and using that activity matrix. These are those social stories we talked to you about, and they're on the Captain website, as are these infographics that are designed just for families. They are in English and they're in Spanish as well. For those of you who may feel more comfortable speaking in another language other than English, these are autism facts in many languages, so Tagalog, Arabic, Chinese, different languages, and those are available on the Captain website to really understand what the facts are about autism. When we look at the ADEPT modules, I showed this to you last time, but they have now added Chinese and Korean as languages for these modules. These are modules that you can engage in yourself if you wanted, strategies for teaching functional skills or positive behavior strategies for your child with autism. Or perhaps maybe your school team could present this to a group of parents and walk through these already moduled programs on these two topics and then have a parent discussion. But either way, I thought it was important that you knew that the two languages of Chinese and Korean were just added about a week ago. You can certainly go to the CDC website and there's lots of information, and I shared this with you last time. This is your Learn the Signs, Act Early. This is your brochure that's on the Captain website that has all the contact information for your Captain region. And it's also got a nice little developmental kind of journey, they call it, and it tells you what you should be expecting developmentally. And then it's also available to you on the website in Spanish. If you're mostly interested about little ones, infant toddlers, all of those evidence-based practices are available here, so you don't have to go through all the different age groups. These are brand new. They're helpful videos for families based on the Early Start Denver model, and it shows real life parents and children interacting in their own homes using these evidence-based strategies for little ones, very young children, infants and toddlers, to help them have more engagement in social interaction and social communication. If you're interested mostly in older individuals with autism, these are your evidence-based practices just for older individuals. They have these really great autism at a glance. So here's one about supporting success and safety in relationships, exercise, depression, looking at supporting communication. And this is where you go to get those on the Captain website. And this is just what it looks like, autism at a glance. So they're very accessible, they're easy to read, and they're just what you need to really address some of those really complex topics. There's some also PowerPoint presentations about challenging behavior, and then getting on to visual supports. We think that that is really the very first place you need to start. You know, we call it either the key 3 or the core 4, but we always start with visual supports. Okay, 7:25. Allison, can you tell me how much more time I can have?
Sorry, it took me a minute to find my unmute. Another 15, 20 minutes is fine.
Okay, I will keep going super fast.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So visual supports. This is an amazing video tour of how to use visual supports in a real life house. These are the 2 links. Again, they're on the Captain Padlet. You just go to the Padlet, click on these, and it shows people walking through a house and saying, here, use these visual supports in the kitchen when you want to teach your individual with autism how to access the refrigerator or not access it, or the stove, or in the bathroom for getting ready, or in the bedroom for getting, you know, the pajamas on at night. So they walk you through the house as well. Making sure that you have, as you know, probably you're experts at this point, now that you've been doing kind of distance learning for almost 10 months, making sure that you have the visual and physical structure available and trying to find a place where you can minimize distractions. Wouldn't it be great if you had the space to do the desk, but we know most everyone is really using that dining room table and some kind of those poster boards that you use for science experiments that you get at like Office Depot to kind of carol off the distractions from other children that you may have in the home, or just from seeing other things in your house. We talk to educators, and you'll see that in those recorded presentations, and we encourage educators to work with you to figure out a way to set up that workstation, to kind of come up with a way to empower families to create structure, making sure you all have structured work systems. It just has to be super structured, as you know. I have a short video here on how to provide some structure. There's lots of these very short tip videos that take 2 or 3 minutes to watch, but I wanted to show you this one that I think might be particularly helpful.
Here's a quick tip to help you and your child get through homework. Sometimes homework can be overwhelming because there's so many different things to keep track of. A simple strategy like a homework folder can be really helpful in organizing work. On the inside of this folder, you'll see on the left side is labeled to do, and on the right side is labeled finished. Also on the right side is a reward that your child can earn after homework is completed. The simple strategy is to place all of the work that needs to be done on the left side, the to-do side. Your child learns to do the work, and when it's finished, they place it in the finished side on the right-hand side. When all of the work on the to-do side is completed and put on the right-hand side, they can earn the reward. Sometimes an entire worksheet with multiple problems may be overwhelming for a child. Another simple strategy is to take that sheet and cut it into 2 or more pieces. Place those on the to-do side, so when your child opens the folder and pulls out the first sheet, there might only be 2 or 3 problems to do. Chunking the worksheet into sections can make it a lot easier for the child to complete the work without getting overwhelmed. For older children, it can also be helpful to color code, with different colors representing different subject areas. The homework folder can match the color of the book cover, and that way it helps with material organization.
So that's an example of some of the strategies that are available. I want to show you about the first then visual schedule system, which is really, really helpful, and it does teach delayed gratification.
Transitions can be really difficult for young children on the autism spectrum. Here's a simple strategy based on the evidence-based practice of visual supports using a technique from applied behavior analysis called the PREMAC principle, which basically means doing a low probability behavior followed by a high probability behavior. Using a simple first-then visual support, showing the low probability behavior, for example, washing hands, followed by the high probability behavior, for example, eating lunch, can be a really effective way to be able to help your child through a more difficult or less preferred activity in order to earn or get to a more highly preferred activity. This same strategy can be effective for older children as well. You can simply write it down. For example, first, complete homework, then you earn the computer. It's important to make it visual and have it either written down or made in a graphic way to help the child keep track of what's expected and what they'll earn. Visual strategies can be highly effective for any young child and for those on the autism spectrum.
So there are lots more of those quick tip videos available. One of the most important reasons that visual supports don't work is perhaps the individual or educator has not selected the, I guess, the particular graphic that matches their cognitive ability. So oftentimes they'll say, oh, the schedule doesn't work. And I said, well, you know what, are you sure you're using the icons or the picture symbols that are appropriate? Always remember that the schedule that may have been working in the classroom may not be working now, just because things are so much different. The real object is the most concrete, then using a photograph becomes less concrete. Those picture symbols, which I see mostly a lot, are next, the black and white line drawings, and then finally the written word. So if you're finding perhaps that the picture symbols aren't really working and your individual doesn't really comprehend the schedule, try going back and using a photograph. Or if you're finding that the photograph doesn't work, try going back and maybe using a real object to let them know what's going to happen next. What we want to do is really foster independence. So if there's a change in the schedule, that's usually okay, as you know, if there's some warning that's provided. And so we always recommend having a change alert. You know, instead of the trampoline, we're going to go for a walk, and that we give them a heads up. Even in their written schedule, we can put these little Post-it tabs and put change on it. For in this case, the individual isn't going to go to library, and they went over that in the morning before, so that when the time comes, it's like, oh, we're not doing that today. Using visual supports in the virtual class, our Captain Cadre from San Benito High School, Cassandra Guerrero, she has these, and you can see that they hold them up like unmute, mute, and they put these little icons on these popsicle sticks, because what we know is the verbal prompt is the hardest prompt to fade. And the last thing you want to do is have your individual with autism prompt dependent. So that's another reason why we really want to use lots of visual supports with our individuals with autism. And so the more of those you can do, the less dependent they'll be on you to tell them what to do, when to do it, etc. You can find lots of visual supports on the Autism Speaks on the TEACCH website. There's a whole hour-and-a-half lecture on visual supports and video modeling that you can get here. When we look at the evidence-based practice, antecedent-based intervention, that just means that we've set our individuals up for success. So we want to make sure we give them a heads up of what's going to happen. We're going to use motivating activities and materials. We're going to use visual supports to show them what's going to happen, offer lots of choices, and build their tolerance. These countdown devices are really helpful. We're going to do this, this, this. So it's this slow warning that it's going to end soon. Or if you want to teach your individual how to wait, you know, you can give them a wait, gives them something to do with their hand, but you're waiting for your turn to do the computer. Or when the timer's all gone, then that gets rid of the power struggle of you saying time to get off. Because after all, the timer told them to stop. Here's a website that has 20 visual timers, and you can choose the one that's the best for you, and it has links to all of them. Using learner preferences, for a long time people said, oh, he's obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine. We have to kind of moderate that. The research doesn't support that. If your individual has a high interest, it's better to use that as a way to increase motivation. So if they love Legos, do Lego math. If they love superheroes, sometimes I've just put the little sticker of their favorite superhero on the math sheet, and that was all that it took. We all want to offer choices, choices, choices all day long. The research tells us that the more choices we offer, the fewer maladaptive or challenging behaviors that we have. Do you want the pen or the pencil? Do you want the iPad or the Chromebook? Do you want to stand up or sit down? Do you want to do English or math? When I have coached in the classroom, I've actually charted the number of choices. And as the choices increase, the behavior challenges decrease as far as rejecting and protesting. Making sure that the visual rules are available in their workstation, you know, sit in chair, shh, quiet, whatever you want them to do and what their goals are as far as interacting in their work. This is a great supporting online learning toolkit, again, that has everything you need. You can print out visual supports and have them available. This is another one that is for supporting individuals and youth, and this is on your Captain Padlet. And this one too is available in all these different languages. This is for adults, so if you have an individual who's 18 to 22 or older, this might be more appropriate information. Again, this is on that Padlet. And everything is on that Captain website. The links to the Padlets are right there on that front page. go to check it out. We have all of those presentations on there. We have our publications, which show all of the work that we're doing is research-based and evidence-based for Captain and the SELPA content lead. We have all the EBP training. So all those, we have 10 of the highly used evidence-based practices trainings on there for you to learn about as well. And then please check out our Captain Facebook page. Every day we post something that's really specific and relevant that can be helpful to educators and families and service providers in California. And our motto is that children and families can't benefit from evidence-based practices if they don't experience them. So thank you. I hope I didn't go too fast, but I can always come back. You have the PowerPoint and you have the Padlets and the website. And then you can always contact me or Patty Bangs for anything that you need or want more information, or your Captain Cadre. Thank you. Did I do it?
Thank you.
It's not bad, 7:35. Any questions? I wasn't able to look at the questions, but Patty and I can answer whatever questions you might have. Did I go too fast? Everybody's head.
No,
Oh.
no.
It's too late.
No, not at all.
Yeah, there was some really good, great tips there, and it was kind of fast, but I think, you've sent us the resources that we can send on to folks. I don't know if anyone else in the
Well,
group
I
has
just
any
remember,
I think
Yeah.
it's just right in. It's like you took us through it, and we could make mental notes like, oh yes, it's in there, and then we can go back and, we know it's there, and then we can go back and look at that.
Yeah, the slide deck will be shared. And in terms of the actual, I'm wondering if maybe you could share with us where on the website. That might be something that would be useful for people, just to see if you could share, because I saw the presentation that you sent with us that we're going to send out to everyone. But if there's a specific part of the website people should look at. You were
okay, so you go to the Captain website, which I will show you. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
It's right there.
That's what you're referring to as the Padlet?
This is the Padlet.
Okay,
This is the Padlet.
okay.
In English, you just click right here and it'll take you to the Padlet. Sometimes when I click this, you can't see the Padlet. Can you see the Padlet?
Mhm.
You can?
Where is it? It's a little screen.
Okay, I'll reshare it, because when you go in and out, but here's what the Padlet looks like.
Okay.
So you just click on that and it'll give it to you. You just click on anything on there. It's like magic.
Mhm.
So here are all those apps. Here's everything. See, there's those quick tips. You would
Yeah.
click right there and it'll take you all to the great quick tips. The AFIRM modules, you click right here and it'll take you right to them. So everything, here are those videos about the autism house, and you click on that, it takes you to the video and she'll walk you through your house. Say, here, use these videos, so these visual supports here. Everything that I talked about is on this Padlet. Here's that 1.5-hour talk on visual supports if you want to learn more about it. But we tried to make it as easy as possible